This is draft season presented by Moody's, a proud partner of the New York Giants. I am John Schmeelk. Welcome, everybody, joined by Tony Pauline. As we head through college football week, I guess what it's like 2.5, is it a week
Yeah.
zero, whatever you want to call it, Tony. But not quite as exciting as week one, so we will review some of those games. But today we're going to do Tony's preseason rankings on the offensive side of the ball for all the offensive line and the skill position players and the quarterbacks. Tony, how'd you enjoy your weekend, my friend?
It was good. I mean, it was kind of a spotty Saturday schedule on the college football slate. Not too many really good games, not too many good matchups. I guess starting in week three or this Saturday, we'll start to get more interconference matchups, games, which will make things a little bit more exciting. We'll start to see teams really pair off more so, top teams play one another compared to what we saw at least this past Saturday.
Yeah, we had some upsets. Florida with the big loss last week. They take on LSU this week. So we'll keep an eye on that moving forward as we start to head now into these conference schedules for the SEC and obviously the Big Ten and the Big 12 and the ACC. All right, Tony, let's talk about some of the games that happened this week first. And you want to start with the matchup I was surprised by, Illinois and Duke. What has you pumped up about what happened in that game?
I mean, the score is not really indicative of the game in the sense that it was a very close game. Really, through the third quarter, Duke, the receivers could not make plays. They were dropping passes. There were a couple bad interceptions. But there are some really good pro prospects to watch, surprisingly, on Duke, who lost the game by more than 3 touchdowns. Brian Parker, their right tackle, who is everybody's favorite offensive lineman or one of the favorite offensive linemen right now in the scouting community. You know, we know Duke, we see their history. They put a lot of good offensive linemen into the league. Brian Parker is going to be next. He's a fundamentally sound, smart right tackle. He projects to guard, or at least I have him as a guard. Some people have him at center. Right now, you talk to people in the league who will talk about him or scouts. They're talking third round for Brian Parker, and there's a lot of upside in his game. So keep an eye on Brian Parker, the right tackle for Duke moving forward. Vincent Anthony, the edge rusher, had 2.5 sacks, 2.5 tackles for loss against the left tackle J.C. Davis of Illinois. He's a taller, thin edge rusher, more of a stand-up guy, but he's athletic. He can bend the edge. He's kind of got late-round grades from scouts right now because they're not too sure of his speed, but he's football fast, and he makes a lot of plays. And finally, from Illinois, Xavier Scott, the defensive back. Didn't have great stats, but he's constantly around the ball. Played cornerback last year where I had him as a third-round pick. Moved to safety. He's really done well transitioning to the safety position. Terrific ball skills. And, you know, the way we talk about Duke with offensive linemen, Illinois has had a lot of really good defensive backs come out of that program the past couple of drafts. And I think Xavier Scott's the next one.
Yeah, Devin Witherspoon, one of them. They've had a couple of safeties come out, so they've had some pretty good corners and safeties. Absolutely, Tony. Illinois, remind me, they have a good edge rusher, if I'm not mistaken, Tony, coming out of Illinois this year, correct?
Gabe Jackus, he's a good pass rusher. He's like 6'3", 270 pounds. Is he a defensive end? Is he a guy that you're going to stick inside on a 4-man line? Is he like a 3-technique tackle? He's a real good football player. Actually caused a fumble, caused a turnover late in the game. Towards the end of the first half, after he was kind of non-existent and he was basically being held at bay by Brian Parker. They didn't have a lot of pass rush, but Gabe Jackus is the guy who could be a late day 2 pick as of right now.
Another big game this week was Michigan and Oklahoma, Tony. Friend of the program, Jim Nagy, now basically the general manager for that Oklahoma program. Big win against Michigan, who made a little bit of a run late in that game, but Oklahoma managed to hold them off thanks in part to the player, their quarterback, John Mateer.
Very impressed with Mateer. 27 of 34, 270 yards passing, 1 interception, 1 touchdown. But he was smart. He made good decisions. He shows terrific mobility.
He can move, Tony. That's what got me. His pocket mobility is really impressive.
Makes a lot of plays in and outside the pocket. And you like the fact when he's outside the pocket, he's keeping his eyes downfield, looking for receivers, can pick up yardage with his legs. Made a lot of difficult throws. I think the one thing about Mateer that's kind of a red flag for me is the accuracy, the pass placement. His passes are sailing high of receivers. Sometimes he's throwing behind wideouts. That's got to be fixed. That has a lot to do with footwork sometimes. But again, Mateer, who was one of the more high-profile transfers, you know, in the offseason, in the college offseason, first game in a national spotlight, against a big program like Michigan at home in Norman, Oklahoma. I thought he did a really good job.
All right, and
And
then
I'm kind of be impressed.
and then one of his wide receivers, Deion Burks, also impressed you, right, Tony?
I impressed scouts as well. I mean, Deion Burks came into the season with mid-day 2 grades. He's a little bit of a smaller guy, 5'9.5", 182 pounds, but he is explosive. He's quick. He's got a great first step. 7 receptions, 101 yards, 1 TD. I think he only played like 5 games last year, if you want to go back and look, because there was an injury. He's a shorter guy, but he catches the ball well. He plays big football. He doesn't play like a smaller receiver. He fights to come away with those contested grabs, and he's just incredibly explosive. And I mean, now he's going to be Mateer's favorite receiver. So this is a good combo, moving forward through the 2025 college season. And Deion Burks, I'd be shocked if he's not doesn't enter the draft. And there's a lot to like about him. Sort of a slot receiver return specialist for the next level.
And Tony, I'm not sure how good Michigan's going to be this year, but they always have some players up front that impress scouts.
Evan Link, the left tackle, number 71. Just keep an eye on him. For game purposes, Oklahoma's got a couple of really good pass rushers. They had 1 sack. Each guy had a half a sack. He's a big guy. He's mobile. He plays with tremendous fundamentals. If you read my preview of the Michigan prospects over the summer at Sportskeeda, I talked about him as being the next top rated offensive lineman for Michigan. I gave him a 2nd-round grade. What I saw Saturday is a guy that could sneak into the late part of round 1. So Evan Link, the next really good offensive lineman to come from Michigan, only a redshirt sophomore, so keep an eye on him, the left tackle there.
Yeah, Tony, look, Michigan's going to have to figure out that quarterback situation. They have a young player there that they're trying to bring along. He's a good athlete, but as a passer, Michigan can challenge for national championships when they have good quarterbacks. It's no surprising they won their national title when J.J. McCarthy ended up being a first-round pick. But they just had, I think, a lot of trouble finding guys to fill that spot consistently, which has really held the program back.
I mean, and it's 2 years now, right? It's been since McCarthy graduated because they had problems at quarterback last year. And, to your point, McCarthy was a starter from his freshman year and just got better and better and better, had that offensive line in front of him, a good coach in Jim Harbaugh. But, yeah, you're exactly right. And, there was a lot of hullabaloo about this freshman quarterback. You got to give him time.
Of course.
But we'll see what happens.
All right, and I want to talk a little bit about the Arizona State-Mississippi State game. Arizona State had an unbelievable drive at the end of that game. They run it. I think it was like a 9 or 10-minute drive. They just pounded in for a touchdown. The Mississippi State gets the ball back. They make one deep play, big play down the field, end up winning the game late to win that game at home against Arizona State. But I think 2 players we'll talk a lot about this year, Tony, is the Arizona State quarterback, Sam Leavitt. He did not play well in that game, just 10 of 22, 82 yards. As I mentioned, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. They ended up running the ball a lot to get that late score in that game. But I more want to focus here, Tony, on Jordan Tyson as main target of wide receiver. He had a monster week 2 weeks ago. This week, he was 6 for 68 and 1 touchdown. He's dealt with some injuries in his career, but I was really impressed with his tape over the summer. I think he has a chance to elevate himself into wide receiver 1 conversation in this year's draft class, which I think is pretty wide open, to be honest with you.
I look at him as like a Brandon Ayuk type in the sense that he's not really big.
Yep.
He's not super fast, but he's smart. He runs outstanding routes. He consistently separates from defenders, especially in underneath coverage, and he catches everything. And if you remember last year, when Arizona State made that run, he wasn't there for the playoff game against Texas, where Arizona State almost won. He was on the sidelines with an injury. And if he was in that game, there's a good chance that Arizona State would have beaten Texas in that quarterfinal playoff game. But, yeah, he's very consistent. Wide receiver 1, I think that's also a symptom of the fact that it doesn't look on paper anyway like a great receiver class.
Yep.
But he's very good. I definitely could see him with decent testing numbers, at least squeezing into the late part of round 1.
Yeah, that's something that we need to track, especially, again, with a good quarterback like Leavitt, who we're now going to talk about, Tony, in your quarterback rankings. But first, I want to remind everybody that draft season is presented by Moody's, a proud partner of the New York Football Giants, uniting the brightest minds to turn today's risks into tomorrow's opportunities. Learn more at Moody's.com. All right, Tony, let's turn to the quarterbacks. It's a high-volume quarterback class. I think you got a couple players with high-end upside if they can get there. I don't think they're there yet, but a lot of players to talk about here that I think we'll be talking about as potentially day 2 draft picks.
Or even day one. I
Yes,
mean, listen,
late day 1.
yeah, I like the potential in this year's quarterback class. Now, I also said that about last year's quarterback class, which didn't turn out good for the draft, although it looks pretty good right now. You look at Jalen Miller, Jackson Darts, Cam Wards, etc. I mean, everyone talked about Arch Manning at the end of the 2025 draft. We talked about that last week. When I watched the film over the summer, I said, if I had the first pick of the draft and I needed a quarterback, I'm taking Lenore Sellers of South Carolina. There's no question in my mind. He's not the tallest guy, but he's got a big, strong build. He's got a tremendous arm. He can make all the throws. He can throw himself out of trouble because of his arm strength. He's incredibly athletic. He shows the ability to create yardage. He shows the ability to run over defenders. And for the most part, he's smart. He doesn't make bad decisions. Lenore Sellers is a good passer. He's not a good athlete trying to play the quarterback position. He needs to improve his pass placement a bit, needs to improve his accuracy, sort of what I talked about with John Mateer of Oklahoma earlier. But I love his upside. I like his game a lot right now. And I think, if you need a quarterback at the top of the draft and the draft was held right now, I'm going with Lenore Sellers. After that, I've got Drew Allard. People are going to, basically turn the show off there. I'm going to say Drew Allard, number 2. But when you talk about the physical tools, Drew Allard's got them all. I mean, he makes some incredible passes. He's big. He's a terrific pocket passer. He can throw the ball. The problem is with Allard is his best season was his freshman season. He's sort of taken that Christian Hackenberg, if you will, trajectory, and that he doesn't seem to progress. In fact, he seems to regress at some points in times. We talked about this before Junior Declaration Day a year ago. He made the best decision going back to college. Whether he made the best decision to go back to Penn State remains to be seen. They should be in the national title, and a lot is riding not only on Penn State's national title shoulders on for Drew Allard, but his NFL draft stock. I mean, if he has the same sort of, he's good in spurts, he's going to drop like a rock. But if he plays to his potential, I mean, he will rise up draft boards because he's got all the physical tools. Then I got Garrett Nussmeier of LSU, who from an intangible point of view, from the point of view of seeing the field, reading defenses, making proper choices, is a lot better than Drew Allard. But he's small. He's not even 6'1", 204 pounds, doesn't have a great arm, doesn't have those natural tools, those natural physical tools, but he's got it going on between the ears.
Yeah, and then you go down. We talked about Cade Klubnik and Arch Manning last year. Those are 2 guys. Klubnik, good athlete. Has to worry about his pocket presence a little bit. He airmailed a couple balls last week. Not the biggest guy, not the biggest arm, but I think to me, Klubnik reads to me as a guy that'll be a really good, backup or low end starter for a long time.
Yeah.
And then even after that, Tony, a couple guys we talked about today, you have the transfer to UCLA from Tennessee, Nico. You have John Mateer. Fernando Mendoza is another big transfer people are big fans of. I mentioned Sam Levitt. And then Carson Beck, who we were talking about as a first-round pick before last year. So it's a very deep class, a lot of quarterbacks to talk about.
Yeah, you mentioned Klubnik. I think my red flag for Klubnik, who I liked a lot coming into the year, was he showed great progress from 2023 to 2024. He kind of seems to have flatlined, even regressed a little bit the first couple of games. And I know it's only a couple of games in 2025, but that really is something that has to be watched. 2 guys to keep an eye on. Fernando Mendoza of Indiana. Transfer for Cal. Big guy, athletic guy, strong arm passer who can also make yardage, pick up yardage with his legs, makes a lot of difficult throws. Kind of got, I asked people in that Cal program what happened. They said there was a constant change in the coaching staff, offensive coordinators. He never really got settled. Well, now he's with one of the best coaches in football in Indiana, not just one of the best college coaches, the best coaches overall in football, and Kurt Cignetti. His game can take off. Another name to keep an eye on, Taylon Green of Arkansas. 6'5.5", 222 pounds, runs in the 4.6s, has the arm strength to match, next level arm that can make all the throws. If this guy can put it all together and really go from athlete to passer, Taylon Green of Arkansas, I believe, will shoot up draft boards.
All right, Tony, I want to jump now over to the running back group, which I think we're having a second consecutive year with a very strong running back class here, Tony, and you have a surprising name at the top.
Oh, C.J. Baxter, who was injured in 2024. You watched him in that Ohio State game. He was a dominant interior runner who has the ability to turn the corner. He's a terrific pass catcher out of the backfield. He's an outstanding blocker. I think he's just a well-rounded, complete back. Now, I'm basing it off of a little bit of film from 2023 and what I saw early in 2025. So it's a bit of a risk. But when you look at his size, you look at his tools, you look at the versatility of his game, I really like Baxter a lot. And then I have him ranked slightly higher than Jeremiah Love of Notre Dame, who everybody loves Jeremiah Love. And when Jeremiah Love is on his game, he is a terrific running back. There's no doubt about it. We saw it in against Indiana in the playoffs. He breaks the long runs. He breaks games wide open. The problem with Love is he's not a real feature back. He's not a consistent back. If you look at the stats, he carries the ball maybe 12, 13 times, and he's up and down. There's not a lot of, say, Ashton Jeanty a year ago, where Ashton Jeanty basically carried Boise State. You don't see that at all with Jeremiah Love, which it's not a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing, but it's not really a good thing. It's not something that you're going to take a quarterback really early, a running back really early in round one. And then after that, you got guys like Penn State's got basically Thunder and Lightning in Nick Singleton, who is basically the Lightning, a guy who can turn the corner, terrific pass catcher out of the backfield. Katron Allen, who's more of the interior short yardage ball carrier. Those guys are day two picks. Mekhi Hughes of Oregon, who's actually outplayed this weekend by Noah Whittington. Mekhi Hughes, the Tulane transfer, a smaller, creative runner, multi-cut ball carrier who strings multiple moves over the course of a single run. Darius Taylor of Minnesota, guy I really like. I've got a third-round grade on him right now. Someone who has got the size to run on the inside, but also has the quickness and the agility to turn the corner and make defenders miss.
Just to give people an idea. I'm sorry, Tony. You want to go a couple more guys here?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say just to note, and Tony's pretty tough on his grades usually. You have 10 players at the running back position with day 1 or 2 grades.
And they're all, there's a versatility. Jam Miller, who's hurt from Alabama, he's a guy that could go day 2. He's a good interior runner who catches the ball well. Damon Claiborne of Wake Forest, we'll see him this week. I believe Friday night, Wake Forest has got a big ball game against North Carolina State. Really a quick, explosive guy who can beat defenders into the open field. Justin Haynes of Michigan, more upside than actual a guy that has a lot of production. I talked about C.J. Baxter, his teammate, Quintervian Wisner. He's the home run threat. Wisner's the guy that, if there's a bit of room, he'll beat defenders into the open field and run the daylight. They're all different backs. They're all backs that bring different skills and versatility to the game. So if you want your third down back, you'll be able to get it in a guy like Mekhi Hughes. If you want your feature runner, you can get it in a guy like C.J. Baxter. If you want your guy that is a situational spot starter, maybe Darius Taylor of Minnesota.
Yeah, so again, a very deep running back class, something we'll keep an eye on as we move forward here. All right, Tony, let's shift our attention over to the tight end spot, where I don't think we're going to get a bunch of first-round tight ends like we got the last couple of years, but still some good players.
I'd be shocked if you have a first tight end go in the first round. I mean, maybe it's Max Clare of Ohio State, who scouts really like a lot. The transfer from Purdue, you saw him in that first game against Texas, a real good pass catcher, more of a move type of tight end, but he would have to really pick up his game, elevate his game to be a first-round pick. We touched on Jack Endries of Texas, the Cal transfer, last week when we did our review of the Texas-Ohio State game, a guy who I think is going to be one of Arch Manning's favorite targets. An athletic tight end that can get down the field, catches the ball well, has done so for 3 years. The prior 2 years at Cal before moving to Texas. Eli Stowers of Vanderbilt, the New Mexico State transfer, has had a really good year at New Mexico State before transferring to Vanderbilt. Catches the ball well, doesn't have great production, but I mean, he's the guy that goes 6'2.5", 240 pounds, runs in the 4.6s, just needs to pick up the production. Those are the only guys I have right now that are graded as day 2 picks. The rest are third-day selections. Terrence Carter of Texas Tech, transferred from Louisiana, which basically ran the ball. He's an athletic guy. Now he goes to Texas Tech, which likes to throw the ball around the field a lot. Line their tight ends up in the slot. Keep an eye on him. Kenyon Sadiq of Oregon. A lot of people like him. I want to see him take over for Terrence Ferguson. He's more of a move down the field tight end. Later on, Garrett Oakley of Kansas State, Joe Royer of Cincinnati, Tanner Koziel of Houston. A lot of good tight ends from the Big 12, but we're really talking more day 3 picks right now.
All right, don't forget, draft season is presented by Moody's, a proud partner of the New York Giants. Decode risk, unlock opportunity. Learn more at Moody's.com. All right, Tony, let's now take a look at the wide receiver spot, which, as we mentioned earlier, this wide receiver class, Tony, is wide open. That wide receiver 1 spot is there to be taken, and there's a lot of guys in the mix to do it. And as we both know, a wide receiver always seems to emerge every year that we don't expect.
Yeah, I think right now it could be Antonio Williams, although he's dealing with that hamstring issue, which we saw the first game when Clemson lost to LSU, and we saw what a big dent it made in that Clemson offense. I don't think he even played last week against Troy, and Clemson's offense really had a tough time getting off the snide there. But I think he's not big. He's not really big. He's probably going to measure 5'10" and a half, 5'11", but he's quick. He's explosive. He catches the ball incredibly well. Terrific route runner, shows some deep speed. Cornell Tate of Ohio State, who you spoke about, I know you like a lot. A guy who's a bigger guy, big play receiver, came through for Ohio State, not only the game against Texas, but last year down the stretch in the college football playoffs. We've seen a lot of really good receivers come out of Ohio State recently. You saw Emeka Egbuka on Sunday really helped the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win that game. I think Cornell Tate is in that same sort of mold, potential late first-round pick. I've got Evan Stewart of Oregon on my list as number 3, although he's not playing this year because he suffered a significant knee injury. People are going to go back and ask, should he have entered the 2025 draft? I don't know, but Evan Stewart at Texas A&M and even last year at Oregon, when he's on his game, he is unstoppable. Now he's got a big hill to climb coming back from that knee injury. Denzel Boston, a bigger, more possession type receiver who can sneak it downfield. Jordan Tyson, we already spoke about. Deion Burks, we spoke about. 2 guys I like, Eric Singleton of Auburn, smaller, speedier, faster guy, and Harrison Wallace of Mississippi by way of Penn State. Keep an eye on this guy. He was a riser for me this week. He is a one-man show. He's got decent size. He's got good speed, and he's got very reliable hands. But like you said, I mean, which of these guys is going to pop up out of nowhere? Because there is no wide receiver number 1 right now, and there are no guys that are battling, say, to be the top pick in the draft, top pick at the position in the top 10, to the way we did with Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors just a few years ago.
Yeah, so we'll see which one of those wide receivers in a very pass-heavy college football might be able to emerge. And Tony, this could be another good offensive tackle draft class. We've talked about that for a couple years now. We had the one 2 years ago. We had, 6 or 7 offensive tackles go in the first round. I don't know if we're going to get that high this year, but certainly a lot of very good offensive tackles in this year's class.
I think the only reason we won't have 7 the way it looks right now, 6 to 7 offensive tackles taken in the first round of the 2026 draft is because the need's not there from teams. I think the talent is there. I did a mock draft at sportskeeda.com last weekend before the first week of the NFL season, and I had 7 offensive tackles go in the first round. And I think Evan Link of Michigan, who I just spoke about, could actually be the 8th offensive tackle. A guy who I like at the top, and no one's talking about him right now, but they will, is Xavier Chaplin of Auburn. Transfer from Virginia Tech. This guy's super athletic. He's mobile. He is a tremendous pass protecting left tackle who shows ability on the second level. People I've spoken to in the scouting community believe he's going to be a top 10 pick. He was my first tackle on the board in my recent mock draft. Caden Proctor of Alabama, the big, huge Crimson Tide left tackle, who I think, like a lot of big, huge Crimson left tackles, is probably better off on the right side. Fundamentally sound. He's not an arm wrestler. He's a leverage blocker who uses good body positioning and fundamentals to block. Francis Muego, who we spoke about last week from Miami, a big, strong, athletic right tackle who's got the versatility to maybe be used on the left side. But, you see the way the Philadelphia Eagles have had success with Lane Johnson so many years, an athletic right tackle. Muega's like that. Utah's got a pair of guys who I like a lot. Spencer Fano, who is their right tackle, a big, strong, fundamentally sound guy. Caleb Lemieux, who is the younger guy. He's a left tackle, not as strong as Spencer Fano, but he's fundamentally sound. He moves incredibly well. He's a terrific pass protector who can also block on the second level. Drew Shelton of Penn State, an outstanding left tackle, athletically gifted left tackle prospect. Ryan Baer of Pittsburgh, a fourth-year junior who I'm told is very likely to enter the draft. Keep an eye on him. Spoke about Evan Link, but the list goes on after that. I mean, I can speak for the next half hour. Isaiah World, the Nevada transfer who's now playing left tackle at Arizona State. You talked about now playing left tackle for Oregon. You talked about Arizona State before. Watch their right tackle, Max Anchor, who was given fourth-round grades last season. He comes into this year with second-round grades. Jude Barry of Boston College. I mean, these are all guys that, if there's room, could all be top 50 picks in next year's draft. They are that talented.
And we know how NFL teams are desperate for offensive tackles.
Absolutely.
Always a position of need that teams are trying to shore up that position. I wish I could say the same about the interior offensive lineman, Tony. We had Tyler Booker go in the first round last year. I don't think we're going to see that happen in 2026.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a stretch to get a lot of interior offensive linemen in day 2 of the draft. I have Jaden Roberts, the big, strong guard from Alabama, as my number 1 interior offensive lineman. He's strictly, in my opinion, a power gap type of blocker, has been dealing with some injuries at the beginning of the season. A lot of people are in love with Connor Lew, the center from Auburn. A lot of people think he's going to be a first-round pick. I don't. I like his game. I don't love his game. He's more of a zone blocking lineman. In fact, I think he's only a zone blocking lineman because oftentimes when you watch the film, he's getting obliterated at the point of attack by bigger.
How big is he, Tony? How big is he?
I mean, he's listed right now at 6'3", 300 pounds. He's only a junior, so we don't have any.
That's small.
Measurements. So if he's 6'3", if they're listing him at 6'3", 300 pounds, probably means he's more like 6'2", 290, which is why when you watch the film, yeah, he's good in motion. He's good when he gets a running start, but when he has to go up against a 330-pound defensive tackle, he has his problems. Ryan Parker of Duke, who I spoke about at the top of the show. DJ Chester, who's from another redshirt sophomore from LSU, who's dealing with injuries, has lost his starting job. But you go back and you watch the 2024 film, he looked like he was going to be a star in the making. A lot of smaller linemen. Logan Jones, the center from Iowa, 6'2.5", 299 pounds. Parker Brailsford from Alabama, a smaller interior lineman. These guys are more day 3 guys. So to your point, when you started the position, I don't think there's going to be any first-round picks. We knew Tyler Booker was going to be a first-rounder going into the 2025 draft. I don't know that we thought Dallas would take him as early, but from where we sit right now, I don't see any of these interior offensive linemen being taken in the first round. Maybe you can get a guy like Ryan Parker, who has a knockout year, who plays right tackle for Duke. Maybe he's a guy who could be projected to squeeze into the late part of round 1 as an interior offensive lineman if he continues to play at the level he's shown so far.
Yeah, you mentioned Logan Jones. He was one of the guys on Duke on Bruce Feldman's freak list, so that's something to keep an eye on. Really good athlete. So yeah, just not a lot of big guys. And I think, Tony, that's kind of where college football is going, right? They want offensive linemen that can move. They don't necessarily want these road graders. They want guys that can pass protect.
And that always, moves, will basically transition to the next level. I mean, we've seen, the passing game with colleges lining up 4 receivers, and then you get this plethora of receivers into the NFL because the schools are developing so many receivers, and you go away from the traditional tight end. I mean, when was the last time a team's drafted a fullback? You don't see fullbacks anymore on Saturday. You don't see fullbacks on Sunday.
All right, Tony, real quick, this week's matchups, like we talked about last week, not a ton. So next week we'll do your defensive preseason rankings and see where we're at. I'm just going to roll through a couple of the big ones here. You tell me if anything catches your eye. Alabama will have a chance. Look, I'm not, last week they're not playing a real opponent. So they get Wisconsin this week. I want to see how they do after that disappointing week 1 loss. Auburn. Again, they ran the ball. I think they did over 200 yards rushing last week. That's a team to keep an eye on. They're playing South Alabama. Not a big matchup. Georgia, Tennessee is probably the most competitive game we're going to see. Georgia ranked 6th. Tennessee ranked 15th. And then Miami and South Florida. South Florida had that big win last week, and Miami has started it off hot. They're 2-0. Those, to me, are the games that I'm most excited about. And then LSU, Florida. Can Florida bounce back after that really tough loss last week?
Yeah, I mean, give credit to South Florida. I mean, they've almost beaten Alabama in the past 2 years. They beat an interstate rival in Florida. Florida could be, or the Florida's coach could be in a bit of trouble. The Tennessee cornerback McCoy, Jermod McCoy, is not playing this weekend because of an injury. That would have been a nice matchup to see him play against Noah Thomas and Colby Young, the receivers from Georgia. Good games. I don't, who did LSU's playing?
Florida.
Who did you say? Florida, right? I mean, Florida's got a big offensive tackle that a lot of people like, in Austin Barber. A lot of people outside the scouting community like him. A lot of people outside the scouting community think he's a first-round pick. You talk to scouts. Scouts have a much lower grade on, but I think he's a good. I think he's a legitimate NFL prospect. Against that, as of right now, no-name LSU defensive front, which basically handled Clemson, who has two good offensive tackles.
And then finally, one game I didn't mention is two top 20 teams, Notre Dame and Texas A&M. I know Texas A&M probably thinks, Tony, that they deserve to be a top 10 team with all the money they've thrown around, and they have some talented players there. And Notre Dame, they want to bounce back here. You don't want to start 0-2 if you're Notre Dame. You're coming off a very successful season last year, obviously. A new quarterback. So I think a really big game for Notre Dame to try to bounce back against a very talented and, frankly, a Texas A&M team that might have better athletes than they do.
And they absolutely do. But the thing is these guys got to be more consistent on the football field. You look at Will Lee, the cornerback, 6'1", 192. A lot of scouts like him as a day 2 pick. And he shows a lot of flash on the field, but there's not a lot of consistency. Le'Veon Moss, a home run hitter like the kid that plays for Miami that came out of Texas A&M a couple of years ago. Again, a guy who does it in spurts, but doesn't do it on a consistent basis. Keep an eye on Texas A&M's left tackle, Trey Zahn. Wide range of opinions on him in the scouting community. Some people think he's a day 2 pick. Some people think he's a mid-day 3 pick. He's a left tackle who may project to guard. Some people think he's even a center. I liked him as a redshirt freshman when I watched him, but his game is kind of leveled off. I haven't seen a lot of improvement in his game because he's sort of an undersized athlete, but does get some love. Trey Zahn of Texas A&M, the left tackle, in the scouting community.
Tony, always a pleasure, my friend. Let's catch up next week.
Look forward to it, John.
That's Tony Pauline from Sportskeeda. Check out all his work there. I am John Schmeelk. This has been Draft Season presented by Moody's, a proud partner of the New York Giants. We'll see you next week for another episode of Draft Season.